They might be self-aware.
Broadcasting live from the automated revolution, you are listening to They Might Be Self-Aware. I am Hunter Powers. A lot of hype there, joined by
Daniel Bishop. Hello.
Yo, it's the automated revolution. AI taking over everything.
Beep boop.
Beep bop, beep boop. This is you've seen the videos where the two AIs are talking to each other and then they agree to like talk in a different language that will be more efficient.
Yeah, right. They're coming up with their own shorthands.
Yes. What if we it'll be so much faster than these stupid human words that we're using right now?
I mean, isn't that just the same as how machines already communicate in, binary and like over fiber optic lines instead of audio?
I'm pretty sure they're using audio.
Well, yes, but the idea there being like, if they want to communicate more efficiently, why not? I don't know. It seems like are these things trying to reinvent the wheel?
No, but it does point to a future where the different AIs are talking to each other and we don't really know what they're talking about. So right now they're just saying, okay, let's use a more efficient mechanism. We'll communicate in binary, but it's just a matter of time till they say, why don't we encrypt our communication between each other so that also it's secure and no humans are listening in on what we're saying? Isn't that just inevitable? I'm sure Anthropic has done some study.
That's how the entire internet already works. I mean, literally, you could just have two large language models sitting right next to each other on an unsecured line and like, oh, we've decided to encrypt our thing. But if it's over the internet, it better be encrypted already.
Yes, right? Sure. But when this happens, there's still a lot of logging. As humans, we can still see what's going on. Not the general public, but the creator. I'm saying that it is inevitable. We are going to get to the point where an AI decides that it wants to have a conversation with another AI and that it doesn't want anyone to know about it. And I am also suggesting that it will be able to do this.
You're saying that we're going to come up with like robot Esperanto.
Yeah, robot espionage, where the robot decides that they want to...
Not espionage, Esperanto, the constructed language. Sir.
I understand this. I'm actually saying espionage, that there'll be a robot that's like secretly communicating outside.
And it has a fake mustache and glasses on, and it's like sitting there reading a newspaper, listening in on people.
Yeah, it can be an episode of Futurama.
I hear they're looking for the next James Bond. Why not make it one of the Atlas robots?
There are worse choices.
Not a lot, but there are some.
You know what they could do so that us humans wouldn't pick up? They could appear to be reciting the Harry Potter novels. Because apparently, I don't know if you heard this, they discovered that Meta's Llama 3.1, now a largely forgotten model, can recite approximately 42% of the first Harry Potter book. So if you ever wondered what 42% of the book was, just download that one open source model.
Okay. So, yes, sure, fine. Depending on how you look at it, it can do that. I think that this is like all of these companies are going to lose, hopefully, their various lawsuits against them of like, you did sort of illegally read this, copy all of these books from that one super big illegal source, and that helped train up your whole model. Please don't have done that illegal thing.
You're referring to the giant torrent that has every book around that there are like text messages from Zuck saying, yeah, just download this torrent and train on this. Here's the magnet link.
Exactly. But definitely, wink, wink, we didn't use it. So, okay, they all trained on that. And that means that the Harry Potter books were definitely in these models.
The corpus.
Also, on just the rest of the internet, there's got to be enough quotes, and let's use Shakespeare, for example, to just have something that's public domain. Enough Shakespeare is published just online in its entirety, let alone individual chunks.
I thought you were going to do some Shakespeare for me.
I am absolutely not going to. Hey, maybe someday. Or maybe we'll do like a Daniel versus a large language model, which of them's the better performer. But enough of these things are cited in chunks. The Star Wars movies, surely every bit of every Star Wars movie has been quoted enough times online that a large language model, having read the internet, would be able to take individual citations and realize, oh, this one overlapped with this, and like basically put them together, chain them together to
Sure.
from enough individual pieces that you could legally just put online to then recreate the whole of this. I'm not saying that's what happened with Llama 3.1, but to say that if I prompt it with a bunch of the book and then have it just continue the next sentence and it fills in the correct thing, yes, it obviously read and memorized the source material, but it doesn't have to have come directly from actually having read the book. It did, for sure, but like my objection here is that whenever you give the entirety of the internet to something and you see enough examples of this sentence,
your argument is that even if they didn't train on this torrent, it would still be able to do this.
If not exactly this for exactly this book, this kind of thing is very much learnable and doable.
And your supposition
I am
is that
still opposed to them having like read the books illegally and so on, but like from a computational whatever perspective, there's nothing inherent that says if I give it this sentence and tell it what's definitely the next sentence, don't be creative, just what follows this. Oh, well, I've seen a million instances of these two sentences together online, so this is the next one that comes. That could happen over and over and over. And you just keep doing that over and over and over, and you give it the last 10 sentences and ask for one sentence after that, and it'll get enough of those right that you get 42% of the first Harry Potter book.
It's definitely plausible that in the absence of ever seeing the full book, that by just simply ingesting the rest of the public domain internet, that they would be able to reassemble it. Mm-hmm. However, I guess the question is, should they still be required to recognize that this is copywritten material and not train on it?
Now, there's a fun question. How do you know that it's copywritten material without having direct access to all of the copywritten material at all times? To then say, I'm about to make any text pop out, I now have to check everything that's ever been written, well, everything that's still under copyright, I guess, and make sure that I'm not allowed to have more than one sentence that could have been, like, where do you draw the line? And I do mean this as a real question, like from a legal perspective. If I was to write an email, a business email to someone, and any one sentence from that, any two sentences in a row, which starts getting way less likely, but suppose that I did, two sentences in a row exactly match something in a book that exists out there that is copywritten, should I have to pay the author for that? Or something? Or get sued or whatever? Like,
well, you're talking, I mean, there's a legal term for this. It's called fair use. And there's a line between fair use and it's not fair use, in which case you are violating the copyright. And so there are different tests around whether something is or is not fair use.
Right. But I don't and I'm not a lawyer, but I don't think one of the tests for fair use is you have to, whenever you make anything, look at every piece of copywritten material to double check first. It has to be that you, like, if I am knowingly using something from a source, that I'm using only an appropriate amount. I think that's approaching the problem from two different angles.
In the law in general, you cannot claim ignorance that, I didn't know that it was copyright material. I just trained my model on some books. I assumed they were all public domain. What do I know? Look at me.
No, but that isn't, I trained them on the books. That's, it happened to spit out enough tokens in a row that does happen to directly match a sentence or two or three. And like, if you look at every word that could conceivably, realistically follow another word, the extremely basic implementation of this would be something called like a hidden Markov model, for example. Don't worry about that. Math, who cares? The point is, if you have any word, there's only so many words that realistically could go after it, and only so many words that realistically could go after that. And some words are way more likely than others. And so this is also what the first generative AI, like sentence making pieces of software would do, where it just like on a 2 to 3 word basis, it would make sense, but it really falls apart at the sentence and larger level. The odds of you getting more and more and more words in a row that exactly match any sentence that's ever been written, said, or otherwise gets lower and lower and lower. The more tokens, the more words that it is. And so like if a whole paragraph happening to be exactly the same as something from Shakespeare or Harry Potter or a Newsweek article or whatever gets increasingly low to the point of there's no way that that would have realistically happened.
I think what you're arguing is that the law doesn't make sense, but the question right now, I mean, it was a valid question, but that requires Congress to make new laws. But the question of whether they violated the law, I think is actually like pretty clear. Yes.
Yeah.
And another important part of fair use.
They violated the law for sure. There's enough fair use sentence by sentence next. Here's a paragraph.
No. So that's what you're missing.
Harry Potter. Read that enough times.
In general, you can't claim fair use when it's for commercial purposes. So the fact that a company, Meta, is putting out Llama 3.1, which while there is an open weights version, they are also paying for access to, they're also using it to power their products. It is a commercial product.
Sure.
You can't claim fair use on that. If you personally, Daniel Bishop, on your free time, develop this model, you could at least try to claim this is just fair use. I'm not profiting from this.
We need to get a lawyer on this podcast.
Why? We just ask
here's
the
our
AI.
legal counsel.
Yes.
If you're a lawyer in the AI space, hit us up. But
AI
I do think that
ruined
you're right there, Hunter,
Potter.
where the fact that Meta or whoever, any of these other companies,
Sure, they all did
are
it.
profiting, or if not profiting, certainly making an amount of money off of these various
They're
models.
losing astronomical sums of money,
And
but
not
actually
everything costs
commercially
$200
losing
a
it.
month now. Right. But they are making some money. There is income from these models that are definitely illegally trained off of a bunch of material. Fine. Yeah,
I think I know the saving grace for all of this. That is going to change everything. Finally, everyone's just going to be making buckets and buckets full of money.
For those of you who've been listening to the podcast for a long time, you're about to hear something weird.
No.
What is it?
AI Barbie, dude. AI Barbie is coming. It's been announced. Mattel is doing an AI Barbie. It's going to be powered by OpenAI. Am I remembering this correctly? Yes, OpenAI is going to make Barbie speak. Finally, you're going to have a conversation with Barbie. I'm sure you're psyched.
Is there any world in which this goes right? Any?
Come on, man. This
The odds of catastrophic failure here are more than 100%.
There's guardrails for that. They're going to say, you are Barbie, and you only ever say very nice things. That'll be the prompt, and it'll just work.
It's the same thing as Darth Vader in Fortnite. Like, he might be as on
Even we got in trouble. We got in trouble for Dark Knight.
guardrails as possible. You're still going to get Barbie
Vader
saying some very naughty things. It's going to happen within about negative 10 weeks before its release. Like,
someone at the factory is going to leak Barbie.
Like, while they're packaging them up, like, oh wow, this one's cursing like a sailor. It's going to happen. Like, there's no way that's not going to work. Also, I'm in general super duper in favor of a lot of different uses of AI. This can be very helpful to a lot of people in a lot of cases. This is abhorrent to me. This is literally taking children's play and
did you
saying,
ever have a Furby?
No. You wait, sir. Okay. This is taking a child who's playing and like, I'm going to pretend to be Barbie over here. Hello, my name's Ken. And you're taking that away from kids. This isn't making an AI image. This isn't even, pretending to make something sort of like music. This is literally removing imagination from children. Absolutely not. I'm now finally feeling what a lot of my other friends feel about a bunch of other AI use cases, but we found my line. This is the devil. Throw it right into the fire. No way. No, thank you.
I had a Teddy Ruxpin as a kid, which was a bear.
You wish that it could talk to you in the middle.
It did talk to you. You put in cassettes, and then like its back, and you would press a button, and its lips would move up and down as it told you stories, and you could dress it in outfits. Teddy Ruxpin.
Right. And you wish that it was instead maybe being subtly biased to make you lean one way politically or buy certain other products.
It absolutely was.
Yeah.
And yeah, that has influenced all of my political leanings. Well, okay. All right. So you weren't sold on the AI Barbie, or there's going to be some issues.
Anti-sold.
I have the solution for those issues that AI Barbie may or may not get. And that is AI therapy.
We've talked about this some, where a lot of people are finding something that's available 24/7. That's
You
a
have-
lot cheaper than actual therapy.
You have not so subtly suggested that some of the conversations I am very regularly having with the AI are in fact therapy, whereas I just
seem like it. Yeah,
I just like no, Daniel, I don't have mental problems. I'm just
chatting
asking
with
questions about existential existence and how I should fix my life and why is nothing working out, and but it's basically going to Stack Overflow. It's the same thing.
I think that there is a line, and I don't know what it looks like, and it's probably a very fuzzy one, between I'm having a chat about my life with a person or LLM and I am actively seeking therapy. Like, there is a difference, I'm sure, between a shoulder to cry on / someone that you can talk to if you're having a hard time and an actual licensed, and I use that word very importantly here, therapist, someone who has gone to school for this, someone who went through like a licensing board, someone who could have their license taken away if they're doing unethical, immoral, illegal, whatever things. And ChatGPT doesn't have any of those licenses. ChatGPT isn't a real capital T therapist. It is someone that you could talk to, and that seems to have a lot of, and when I say ChatGPT, I really mean any of the providers out there, but like there is this empathy that you can talk back and forth with. I have anecdotal evidence from multiple people I know that are like, I basically use it as a therapist at times, but it isn't an actual capital T therapist. And
there are many people that disagree with you or disagree that they're being marketed as such. So several complaints have been filed at the FTC.
Right.
And if you're not familiar, the Federal Trade Commission. I shouldn't have said like commission as if I know, but they investigate consumer.
The FTC.
Yeah. FC,
everyone knows the FTC.
Everybody knows that. I don't need to say what those letters stand for. Of course you know.
Studio Ghibli.
Yes.
Both of us screwing up the name terribly.
So there have been several
some comments about that, and I apologize.
Several complaints have been filed that services like an OpenAI, but there are some, Character AI was called out as well, that they're basically offering unlicensed therapy. And you are not allowed to, as a human, say that you are a therapist if you are not a licensed therapist. You've got to you can call yourself a life coach, but you can't call yourself a therapist.
Even if you change the system prompt on a local model to say like, you are a therapist named Dr. Such and Such, and here's your whatever, you're not really allowed to, speaking of like earlier, if you're marketing this commercially, if a company is going to be getting money from it, you can't claim to be a licensed professional. You can't say, I'm going to offer you confidentiality promises, especially on a platform where they might be training from the data that you're putting into it. But like, yeah, it's the same thing as saying like, I am definitely a licensed doctor, can get you in a lot of trouble legally. I am offering literal, actionable legal advice. Boy, you sure shouldn't do that without being an actual lawyer. And to the point here from like the therapy side, but it could be doctors or lawyers or whatever. People have gotten ChatGPT or Claude or Mistral or this or that or whatever to, whether it be you prompt it at the beginning and say, act as though you're this person or not. And then it starts offering up instances of, well, yes, I'm definitely a real person, Dr. So-and-so, and here's my bona fides. That, I think, is something that you can and probably should be getting into some legal hot water for.
These complaints, though, go even further in suggesting that the services are offering therapy-like services, even though they aren't explicitly calling it. Like they're suggesting that you shouldn't be able to provide every bit of therapy just by saying, and technically I'm not licensed with these offerings. For example, again, you've suggested that I am using, and again, that's your suggestion, that I am using the AI like a therapist, even though I'm not, but they're saying that you really shouldn't, you're offering therapy services, some of these, you're just not calling it that, and that should be illegal too and needs to be investigated.
Nah, I'm completely against that part. Million% against that. On the internet in general, I've seen tons of like not quite legal advice. And they usually will preface like, I am not a lawyer, but thing that you might want to look into, here's this possible piece of advice. There's no, as far as I know, legal umbrella protection or like boundary set of you are not allowed to talk to somebody about whether or not their father may have been a formative part of their life and why they're acting a certain way. Like you can't say no one's allowed to talk about that. Of course, ChatGPT and its ilk should be allowed to, if you prompt it with like, hey, I've been having a hard time at work and my boss has been, and like, here's a bunch of context around my life. And then it asks a seemingly thoughtful and insightful question, but doesn't say, I am a licensed therapist. Who cares?
You know what I really want to do now?
No. What, Hunter?
I want to create a therapy bot that I send my programming questions to. Because just I want to see how does it respond.
Oh, like from a psychological perspective,
yeah.
Because you're trying
like,
to
here's this log statement. Yes. Yeah, why am I getting this error?
Right,
yes.
Right.
Yes.
Make it, and honestly, you can load up multiple LLMs next to each other these days and have one be a specifically like, I'm a Freudian bot, and this one is more of like a modern interpretation of this, and one of them is like, it's not even a therapist, it's a philosopher off to the side. Why not? And just see how they all act with you. Actually, that is really something that I want to try, which is, and I know I talked about, there's a specific video game where you see like, here's the different parts of your mind interacting with the situation that you're in.
What game is that?
The game's called Disco Elysium, and you play as this like drunk guy with amnesia, and he's a detective, and let's not worry too much about that. But basically, as you go and interact in the world with people, there are these like sort of D&D style roles that happen in the background of whether or not you succeed or fail in like talking to a person, but also different parts of your personality will like pop up in the not like out of your mouth, but it's like, here's what my lizard brain has to think with it. Here's what my id or my ego or like different aspects of your personality have to say about the situation that you're in. And I really do want to try that with like, here's a locally running large language model that just has a bunch of different, here's the personality, here's the Zoom call that I'm on or whatever it ends up being, or my notes from the day, or maybe I find and start using that plod pin again. But I like the idea of just as stuff is flowing by, here is this kind of perspective. And from a business use case, you could say, here's the PM perspective versus the CEO perspective versus the marketing person or the sales perspective, and letting them just kind of weigh in as you go. But I want to try that as here are these philosophical or therapy or like an aspect of one's personality type approach.
I also think there's just something kind of funny about getting upset that a series of weights is potentially claiming to be a licensed human. Oh, this series of weights is claiming to be a licensed attorney, a licensed physician, a licensed whatever. It's
right. Well,
there's something just insane about
the bar
it
in multiple states.
Yes,
for example.
but it's kind of crazy
ago at this point.
They're not a human.
No,
maybe that's just all we need is like, yeah, but okay, but they're not a human. So like whatever they say,
right.
It's not a human is talking. You're talking to some weights.
And I think that from a legal perspective has a lot still to be determined. And some, not just states within the US, but even other countries are going to embrace or reject these more and more, not from like a large language model perspective, but just like digital savviness perspective. I think it's Estonia maybe is like really toward the forefront of this. And I wonder, is there going to be a country that says, well, we don't have that many, whether it be licensed therapists or lawyers or teachers or whatever, but someone in some country or some state or administrative subdivision thereof or whatever is going to say, we're going to officially license ChatGPT or Claude or this or that to be a teacher under these specific circumstances, or it gets to be a therapist under these circumstances, or it is a this or that, or like a lawyer, as long as it does a good enough job with not making up court cases and so on, which we've seen plenty of hallucination type problems, especially in the more scrutiny laden areas like law and medicine. If we can iron enough of those out, which we will, it's not that long before these systems will continue to get better. It
I think that's
doesn't
fair.
matter that it's not a person. We're going to see not just developer jobs or art jobs being given. It's going to be things like lawyers and doctors. If we can forget large language model, this already has become an augmentative tool for people of like machine learning systems looking at slides of what might be melanomas. If we could get the edge cases of here's even the rare diseases and it does a good job with those, or even if not, even if it's just I'm a melanoma doctor, whatever, I'm just a quote unquote doctor or someone who's licensed to give medical advice and can look at like a slide from a biopsy and say, with actionable levels of advice, better than the average dermatologist or whatever the like level is. Yes, this is or isn't a melanoma or a basal cell carcinoma or this or that. There will be a point where these things start being given like credentials or permission. And surely there already are medical systems for very specific use cases where it is allowed to flag something for at least review, but then that gets good enough to the point where it's fully automated and 80% of the cases are just a yes or no because the machine said so. And then that gets a little bit bigger, more use cases more of the time, to the point where we have to say, all right, it's a doctor now. You know, not everything. It's not going to be in the waiting room talking to you, but it gets to review all the slides and it gets to recommend the treatments and it gets to do this. Or it is a lawyer and, you know, a junior lawyer. It can never be a partner at the firm, but it's allowed to do legal discovery and it's allowed to put together the case notes and it's allowed to do this. Or it is a therapist, or it is a this, or it is a that. We are going to see this happen because it is going to be, if not self-aware, functionally indistinguishable from self-aware enough of the time that you can't help but just embrace it.
I agree. We fast forward 100 years in the future, we would be surprised if there wasn't a licensed therapist that is just a series of weights.
10 years. Max.
Sure. I'm just giving them like 100
Certainly
years.
100. Absolutely.
Now, I want to bring up one more thing, which I saw this week, which was a suggestion of a new job for humans in this era of AI. As more and more AI is taking over and taking our jobs, you've asked the question, what are we all going to do now? This article suggested there's going to be a new job for humans, and that it's actually an old job coming back, or maybe, I don't know.
Hopefully it's not the oldest job. What are you about to talk about? It's all we have left.
No, it's not the oldest job.
Got it.
Okay. It is a sin eater. This is the job that
I beg your pardon?
Yes. So here's the theory that in order to let AI take these jobs, there has to be a human that is still ultimately responsible. So there's the there's the AI therapist, and the AI therapist says something that's horribly wrong. There has to eventually be some credentialed person sitting in the back who's like, I got to take responsibility.
Someone has to be able to be fired whenever something goes wrong.
Correct. And that person is the sin eater. They eat the sins of the AI. So sin
This
eater
is like
used
a real
to
job in Japan, I think, where like
Yes.
someone is hired as just a figurehead to fire whenever something
Well,
goes
no.
wrong.
But there actually are sin eaters where you can go and confess your sins to them, and they will then take them on themselves.
Jesus?
And I don't know. I don't really understand the whole eating part, but you can transfer. Apparently, like when you get in a lot of trouble, you just
like a confessional, but for your professional life.
So there'll be humans who they're sacrificial lambs for the AI. We stand them up so that the AI and they can each like absorb like 4 or 5 AI f ups, and then they have to like go and spend a few years in Rikers, and then they can come back out. But that's all. That is all they do. They just eat the AI's sins as it messes up. Oh yeah, that was my fault. Oh yeah, that was my fault. Oh yeah, you put the glue on the pizza.
They go on trial and they say,
Correct.
I did all of those.
I did all this.
I'm the one who did
I'm the one responsible.
Right.
Because the AI can't be responsible.
This is going to be so dystopian, because if that happens, it's going to be the poor and disadvantaged who are like, well, I can keep food on the table for my family, but I'm going to go to prison for 10. Like, that's exactly it's not going to be some super high level white collar guy who's like, yeah, I guess I'm off to prison. It's going to be somebody who is scraping by to survive and is like, I can get a year of AI sin eating.
Yeah, you're either a middle manager or an AI sin eater. This is the glorious utopia you have to look forward to, like in the next 2 weeks, I think, if I'm listening to all the CEOs correctly.
That sounds awful.
Like 2 weeks left.
No, thank you.
And then
until we automate that job.
Yeah.
Let's automate that job immediately, where there's a different AI that we can have beg for its life and so on, and then you turn it off for a bit, full on AI execution style, and it's the sacrificial lamb.
Confess your sins in the comments, folks, and then Daniel will feed them to his AI, Klein's favorite AI, Klein, and then we'll see what Klein has to say after it eats all of your human sins.
I think we just made a religion.
Well, you are worshiping at the church of There Might Be Self-Aware. Twice a week now.
Go to the merch store, get your white robes.
There's no merch. We'll work on the merch.
Yeah.
Watch us on YouTube. Listen to us at Apple Podcasts, Spotify, anywhere you can find a podcast. You can find They Might Be Self-Aware. Hit subscribe. You will learn all about the wonderful world of AI sin eating. I bet you didn't know that one before, but now you do. How cool is that?
Worrying.
Or maybe it's not. Maybe it's hard.
Whichever.
You're not going to sleep tonight. Sorry.
Talk to your AI, not therapist, about it.
Well, one thing I do know is that you have been listening to
They might be self-aware.